Hi, I'm Krista Campbell. Welcome to the first webinar in our three-part webinar series. This webinar series, hosted by ESRI's Electric, Gas, Water, and Telecommunications teams, will share COVID-19 resources and solutions. Our hope is that these webinars will help you to continue the great work that you do while also staying safe and productive during this challenging time. Today's webinar, ArcGIS COVID-19 Business Continuity Solutions, will provide a quick overview of resources and the solutions that have been developed specifically to support your work. We will demonstrate several of the solutions as well as provide insight into configuration. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to you to watch again or to share with your colleagues. Please enter your questions in the questions dialog box. You can enter questions anytime during the webinar. We will answer questions at the end as time permits. Questions we do not get to will be answered in a Q&A document that will be sent to you along with the recording. Several of my colleagues are joining me today. Matt Piper, he's our Director of Electric, Gas, Telecommunications, Water, as well as Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. Jessica Altamira and Vincent Fortino are also joining us. They are solution engineers supporting our industries. Today's agenda. Matt will begin with a discussion surrounding COVID-19 impacts and ESRI resources. Vince will demonstrate several of the solutions ESRI has developed in response to COVID-19, and Jessica will demonstrate how you can get started. We will share a couple of examples of how utilities are using the solutions and wrap up with questions. Matt, let's get started.
Thank you, Krista. It's great to be here today. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us. We have over 1,200 people registered for this webinar. And we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules, no matter where you are in the world today. As many of you know, ESRI was founded with a basic unique purpose, which is to help solve some of the world's most difficult problems through the power of location. And it has become our mission to be able to scale up and provide an immediate response for organizations when needed. And so, for the past 25 years, ESRI has been working to solve some of the world's most challenging problems. And we do this by providing some of these main capabilities. We provide the world's leading GIS software. We help organizations rapidly implement digital workflows at scale. We provide access to authoritative geospatial data and information sets. And through enabling collaboration platforms across the entire organization and communities, we're ensuring the right information is seen by those who need it when they need it. And finally, we provide 24/7 technical support as needed. Now, before we get into our demonstrations today, I thought I would just recap the premise and definition of business continuity, which is the ability to continue operating your business following an unforeseen event. Now, this is really important, and in a minute, I'll explain why. From my experience, utilities have seen many natural disasters, and at the power company I used to work for, we saw on average 4 significant events a year. And during this time, there's always been some guiding framework that organizations adhere to when managing disasters. And this framework, it has different slants, but it typically includes things like preparing, which is establishing an incident response team, forecasting the potential impacts to both the customers and to the network. We move into responding, which includes rapid damage assessment, making the network and customer safe, and managing restoration. Recovering, which is transitioning back to normal operations, communicating with customers and the community, and preparing reporting and analytics. And finally, mitigation, which is putting in measures to reduce the risks or impacts from lessons learned. Utilities have become so accustomed to managing these type of events that many have well-established and well-documented procedures in place with highly routinized processes for mobilizing resources and transitioning back to that recovery. A successful disaster response plan is often considered best practice when you can take your normal operating business model or your business as usual and scale it up to respond to the significant event. This includes scaling the people, the processes, and the technology. Now, if we think back to that definition of business continuity we discussed, that business continuity was the ability to respond to an unforeseen event. And this is exactly where many organizations are finding themselves today. We are going through changes we have never seen before or planned for. So what happens when you're faced with a disruption that challenges your business as usual? How do you scale if your existing people, processes, and technology are not prepared? And as we've seen in the past week, with the recent tornadoes over the Easter weekend, what happens when you're faced with simultaneous events occurring at the same time? COVID-19 is not just another storm, and it cannot be treated as such. If we now look at the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic to utilities, we begin to understand some of the differences we have observed across the globe. Typically, when we're managing a natural disaster, there is a defined event in an area. But with COVID-19, it's global and there's no real defined attribution. Where an event is normally managed through a central command response, we are now challenged to coordinate a remote workforce. And under normal event preparedness, utilities would predict potential impacted networks, but now they're having to adjust and trying to rapidly change their business models to the shifting loads and the demand. And this is not just for electric and gas, it's in the telecommunication industry as well. Utilities often learn from previous events and historical data, but with COVID-19, there really is no precedence. It's all new. We're all pioneering it for the first time. And finally, and possibly the biggest shift we have seen, is that typically during a major event, the focus is more on managing the network and the customers. But this time, there is a much larger emphasis on the people, the employees themselves, the community, and the associated facilities. And this is forcing utilities to manage new information and answer questions like, do you know where your employees are working and if they are safe and healthy? Do you know what facilities, offices, or depots are open or impacted, and where are they? Are you able to communicate the status of your employees and the facilities with the human resources and senior leadership? And does the public know which of your offices or facilities are still open or which ones are impacted or closed? These questions may seem simple and trivial, but many organizations' response plans were not set up to manage information associated with a work from home plan. And as a result, these resources are being managed by disconnected workflows and Excel spreadsheets. And as the OSHA guidance on preparing workplaces for COVID-19 stated, a lack of continuity planning can result in a cascade of failures as employees attempt to address challenges of COVID-19 with insufficient resources. To assist utilities, water, and telecom organizations and address their business continuity and response planning, ESRI has released several configurable maps and apps as part of its business continuity solution. These free, downloadable templates for ArcGIS users can be used to maintain business operations and share authoritative information both internally and externally as required. To demonstrate this in more detail, please welcome my colleague and solution engineer for water, Vincent Fortino.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everybody for attending today. I want to start out with the ESRI publicly available COVID-19 GIS Hub. This is a publicly available webpage where organizations and the GIS community can navigate to and get maps, data sets, and applications, as well as much more for coronavirus spread. This publicly available webpage is constantly updated with the newest available resources, so please check back as needed. But it's a page where organizations and communities can understand, prepare for, and learn how to respond for COVID-19 via GIS. It has things like the Johns Hopkins dashboard embedded, which has now been slated as the global standard for visualization of the COVID-19 spread. We have a step-by-step process to understanding how your organizations and communities could potentially be impacted by COVID-19. We have applications and dashboards that have been made publicly available via the global GIS community, and even publicly available data sets, which your organizations can take advantage of to create and curate your own customized applications. But what we're here to talk about today is what ESRI has curated and made publicly available to your organizations. We have things like the hospital impact model for ArcGIS Pro, We have community tool solutions, which many of your communities and organizations have already stood up. And ultimately, the tools for business continuity, which I'm going to take a deeper dive into now. We're going to launch the solution, and it's going to take us to the ArcGIS Solutions page. This is a page where we can get a high-level overview of what the coronavirus business continuity solution can provide to your organization. We can understand what the system requirements are, what components you get from the ArcGIS platform, and any updates that are constantly made available to the solution. One key tab in this page is the Get Started tab, which gives you an overview and a step-by-step process of how you can deploy this solution via the ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool. And with that, I'm going to jump into the individual components, starting with the individual check-in survey. This is a survey that can be made available to all of your employees within an organization to allow them to track their work status and safety, as well as health status, if your organization prefers to. They can fill this out and essentially check in to work and allow your organization to have a deeper dive into understanding their current work conditions, whether they're working in their normal work location, maybe it's a pump station, maybe it's a depot, maybe they're temporarily working from home or even off-site. One of the key features of this solution is the ability to track who individuals may be working with. As we know, the COVID-19 virus is easily spread from person to person, and we want to understand who has been in contact with potential folks who come down with symptoms. From a managerial standpoint, we can even check in our entire teams. If I'm a field operations manager and I know where my field personnel are, I can check them in myself instead of having them do it individually. Ultimately, these check-in surveys are going to be powering a personnel status dashboard, which gives managers and upper-level folks within your organization insight as to who's working, where they're working, and are they safe. I have key metrics from what the normal working location staff is and how many absent staff I have, whether that's from vacation or sick. They can even see who has symptoms and who's living in a household that's experiencing symptoms of the COVID-19 virus. You can also check in on individual check-ins. For example, Vince checked in just about a half an hour ago, and I can see that his work status has been set to absent. So I can take note of where his assigned location is and see that he is supposed to be working today in the East Chicago Ave pump station. Part of the solution comes the Facility Status Reporter application, which is a web application that allows me to track and maintain the status of my facilities. If I navigate to the East Chicago Ave pump station, I can already see that it's impacted, and it's supposed to be working as a 24-hour pump station. Now, because I know Vince is not working today because he's sick or out of the office, I want to submit a status report and change the status of this facility. They can link out to a facility status report survey and change the status of this facility accordingly. I'm going to change it to closed because I know that Vince is the last employee that's staffing that pump station, and I can come in, submit that survey, and now that facility status is going to be reflected across my ArcGIS platform. If I navigate over to the facility status dashboard, I now see that I have 2 closed facilities, and it's powered just like the personnel status dashboard from that facility status reporter. I can view how many facilities I have, how many staff I have, as well as other key metrics. But I can also view the history of the reports that are submitted, as well as the locations, and I can see that the East Chicago pump station has now been closed. I can also do this with billing departments and share that information out to the public accordingly. Overall, the solution allows you to maintain business continuity, as well as insight as to the work status and the health and safety of your employees from a managerial and high-level standpoint. And with that, I'm going to send it back over to Matt.
Thanks, Vincent. That was excellent. And just to recap, the business continuity solutions consist of a number of maps and apps to help you monitor and report on your facilities and workforce capacity, understand and act on the current status of your employees, your teams, and your facilities, and then communicate the current operations and/or disruptions with the customers and the stakeholders. Now we have a good understanding of what is included in the business continuity solutions. We're now going to take you through how to deploy the solutions within your organization. And to help demonstrate this in more detail and to show you how you can create a nice user interface for your organization, please welcome my colleague and solution engineer from the Utilities and Telecom team, Jessica Altamira. Jessica.
Thank you, Matt. So Vince did a great walkthrough on what you get in the solution. So now how can you configure it for your utilities organization? So grab your GIS professional, even if it's yourself, and let's begin on the Solution Page's Get Started tab. So this page supplies the steps and tools to walk you through the deployment journey. If you recall the required deployment add-in tool that Vince mentioned, here's the link for that free download and easy install. Now, what's the next part of your journey? Open up a blank ArcGIS Pro project on the desktop to take full advantage of the add-in. You'll now find this ArcGIS Solutions button that will launch your next set of tasks. First, specify your utilities ArcGIS Online organization. I'm connected to this example of ESRI Natural Gas. Second, run the deploy task, which opens the vault to all the available ArcGIS solutions.
Hi, Jessica, this is Krista. We're not seeing your ArcGIS Pro screen.
How about now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So just to recap, if that didn't come through clearly, the ArcGIS Solutions button will appear on the Share tab after that install. And the list of tasks will pop up to have those 4 items that you need to go through. The task that I was on, which is deploy an ArcGIS solution, allows you to search, like I said, through all of our available solutions. So I can type in coronavirus business continuity to find that solution. Now, this solution is relevant to all industries. So that includes business, all utilities, state and local government, and even telecommunications. It's in fact the same template across the board, even for my choice in the gas category. So this deploy button uploads all the solution items straight to your ArcGIS Online content folder in just a matter of minutes. So direct access to that content folder from inside Pro confirms that all of these maps, apps, and features were successfully uploaded. Thirdly, configure the data schema of these 2 key parent features called personnel and facilities. Now you may alter the schema of these 2 parent features, but do not delete the existing fields as they are dependent for the maps and apps. Lastly, go ahead and load your data. In the personnel table, determine who is allowed to submit a survey and fill in the fields. So this list can be made up of field engineers, construction leads, compliance directors, or even VPs, and so on. Similarly, in the facilities feature layer, load any critical facilities and fill in the fields. So for utility, the features on the map could include regional offices, service centers, or even ongoing construction sites. So you've made it past the data load and you're almost there. So what next? Aside from uploading features, the tasks also automatically created a group with all the solution content within my example ESRI Natural Gas ArcGIS Online organization page. So inside my list of groups, here's that coronavirus business continuity group, and it contains everything you need to get through that last stretch of your journey. A neat thing about this solution, there's no need to create new web maps because it's already configured for you. For example, this facility status reporter web map already includes those parent facility features with standard symbology and a clean pop-up design. I've also added the gas distribution pipes in the background to know where these critical facilities are located against the network. Finally, back in your group, invite the end users, and as far as the solution setup goes, you've completed your deployment journey. But what good is a journey without sharing the success? So those 5 web applications that Vince went over can be shared in many ways to your entire organization. Here's my example of how the end users of ESRI Natural Gas can access the homepage for both their daily GIS apps at the top and the COVID-19 resources at the bottom. I did some extra configuration in a web page to neatly organize all the apps and make it easy for personnel to access what they need in one location, no matter what their role. For example, a single field engineer or business analyst can open up the individual survey similar to what Vince showed earlier. This focus app enables a person to report their work status and symptoms. Meanwhile, on that same page, designated managers can also perform the same check-in at a team level. Facility admins or construction site teams can update facility statuses in the reporter. And lastly, managers can get the latest reports and updates from both the personnel health and facility reporting dashboard through this map series. Getting the right application to the right person immediately is critical to support your employees and utility throughout this pandemic. So with these GIS solution resources and ideas, we encourage you to grab these tools, start your journey, and get creative to power through these challenging times. Matt, back to you.
Thanks, Jessica, and really well done. What I really like about these solutions is that they are deployed quickly into your organization as a group, which allows you full control over access and sharing, but they are also then able to be used in conjunction with your existing ArcGIS organizational data. What Jessica just showed was how quickly and easily these solutions can be deployed to enable your organization and the customers. Whether it be to rapidly build a website to provide authoritative data or to share this business continuity information on critical resources with stakeholders, there are solutions to support the gathering, security, and visualization of critical infrastructure, employees, and the facilities. I thought it would be really good to share with you some of the great customer success stories ESRI has assisted organizations deploy for the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of you would be aware of the dashboards on the right. Companies like FEMA and WHO, the World Health Organization, are all using ESRI as the trusted technology to enable their visualizations and collaboration. But most likely, as Vincent covered earlier, you've become most familiar with the Johns Hopkins University dashboard. This dashboard was one of the first created and has had billions of visits during the coronavirus reporting and still receives about 3 million visits per hour. Overall, ESRI has fielded over 2,800 disaster response requests, which includes many dozens of utilities, many of which we are now unable to show, but we do have permission to share the great work that customers like Karachi Electric and Central Arkansas Water have done in their deployments. In addition to these, many utilities have also created their versions or solutions, but they've built these with their own internal GIS expertise and have delivered solutions on their own. To support all industries, not just utilities, ESRI has created a hub of COVID-19 featured sites, which includes many examples of successful deployments, including healthcare, the many different types of government, education, and our international distributor solutions. It is worth taking the time to see what others are doing and see what works best for your organization. But we have many great customers showing their work, and these will make great reference sites on showing you what is possible. To summarize, the ArcGIS value, the platform, and what it brings to organizations is best represented in this diagram. Using the free downloadable templates, utilities can deploy solutions and bring their source data, which includes the existing staff, the facilities, and cases, which then enables the creation of digital surveys and check-ins so employees, contractors, and team leads can provide their status updates. This information is then visualized and shared through dashboards and reports, which are finally deployed on a website for consumption both internally or externally for easy access and control. Now, I know we have covered a lot of content today, so to take you through the next steps and recap some of the resources one more time, I'm going to pass you back over to Krista. Krista?
Thanks, Matt. If you're ready to get started, the first thing you need to do is deploy the Coronavirus Business Continuity Solution. This solution webpage provides more information on what maps and apps are included. It also provides instructions on how to deploy the solution and how to load your existing data. ESRI also has a COVID-19 Resources Hub, which Matt just showed you, where you can find related content as well as examples of maps, apps, and dashboards created by other organizations. You can use this page for ideas on additional maps and apps that might be useful to your organization and to find critical information from public data sources. An additional resource is the GIS for Coronavirus Planning and Response White Paper. This white paper includes information about why location is important, challenges faced by government and public health, as well as what is GIS and how you can apply it to support COVID-19 response. What's next? If you're an ESRI customer, reach out to your account manager. They're prepared to help you by answering questions and providing resources. Assess your organization's readiness to deploy GIS solutions. If you don't have resources on staff, ESRI Professional Services are prepared to provide support. As Matt said, this webinar includes a lot of information and we went through it pretty quickly. Don't worry, we are planning to provide all the links to the resources in a follow-up email. As mentioned at the beginning of today's webinar, this is the first in a series of 3. Our second webinar, Digitizing and Mobilizing Field Operations, will be held on Tuesday, April 21st. Our third webinar, Gaining Insights from Analytics, will be held on Tuesday, April 28th. If you're on this webinar, then you're registered for the next 2. If you have colleagues that want to join, they can still join, have them register, and they can catch the next 2 webinars, as well as they can view this first one as an on-demand. Let's get to questions. We only have a couple of minutes, so we might not get to all of them, but as I mentioned, we will share a Q&A document that answers all the questions that are submitted. If you haven't submitted your question yet, this is your last chance. Please submit them in the questions dialog box. All right, team, let's get started. Several attendees are asking about the solution templates that were downloaded. I know we demonstrated this and it looked like it went pretty quick, but how long does it really take to set up these templates?
I can take that question, Krista. So the initial steps I went over of downloading and installing the add-in, as well as uploading the features, maps and apps to ArcGIS Online, takes a matter of a few minutes. Although considering each utility may work with different numbers of personnel and facilities, the configuration of the data could vary with time. But it is possible to deploy this within a matter of an hour or a few if you have all your resources ready.
Thanks, Jessica. Another question we're getting from several of the attendees is about the data. We went through that pretty quickly, the resources and data that's available for our customers to access and use in their response. What is this data? What's available to them?
I can answer that one. So on the COVID-19 Resources Hub at the bottom of the page, there is publicly available data sets that are curated by the global GIS community and ESRI's trusted partners. And also, as always, the Living Atlas of the World is accessible by every ArcGIS organization out there. On top of that, if you wanted to bring in any type of data that you are currently tracking work status and health status with for business continuity, there are ways to bring that into the business continuity solution, and please reach out to ESRI regarding that.
Thanks, Vince. And we are right at the 9:30 time slot. So thank you for joining the webinar today. Please join us for the next 2 webinars in this series.